Hello, it's Monday, and we are done talking about boundaries, at least in this context. We've done this the week 5 talking about boundaries. We talked about what they are. We talked about types of boundaries. We talked about some of the roadblocks to boundaries, what it looks like to set them and to hold them. And we talked about what to do when you run into people who want to be boundary breakers, right? And want to climb the fence and be in your space. So this week, as a wrap up, I want to talk about the joy of boundaries. I think a lot of times when we talk about boundaries, we get sort of hung up on the idea that boundaries are a limiting thing. Boundaries say, this is the wall between us, and it creates a limitation. But the truth is that boundaries are there to make space for saying yes. A lot of times boundaries come across as a no, like this, no, I will not, no, I cannot, no, you cannot, right? So we talk about boundaries in the context of the negative, right? And I understand that because a lot of times that's the first place we have to start. But the fact of the matter is that when you get good at setting boundaries, boundaries enable you to say yes to more things. And that is the beautiful thing about boundaries. So I want to talk a little bit about that. There's kind of three areas that I think that setting boundaries enables you to say yes to. One is self-care. One is, quite frankly, the ability for you to prioritize your own mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. That self-care often comes to us by being able to finally say, I cannot do that. It's not good for me, right? And setting that boundary. It enables you to have some priorities, have some goals, define those goals from a self-care and well-being perspective. It allows you to just have space that is safe and contained and that you can take ownership of and have agency within. And it allows you to catch your breath, right? And set this guardrail of what can be in your space and in your frame, right? The second thing I would say that it enables joy in setting boundaries is personal relationships, real connection. As we talked about last week, there are going to be people who think those boundaries that she or he are setting are not for me. And the fact of the matter is boundaries are your boundaries, and the other person needs to adhere to the boundary, right? And if that makes them angry enough to go away, then they weren't meant for you anyway, right? That's just the way it is. If it's not something you can negotiate, off you go. But in well-boundaried relationships and healthy relationships with intimacy and connection and a real sense of my being able to be myself and you being able to be yourself, and we're honoring that, boundaries are fine. They're healthy. They enable that connection. They create a space where we can discuss what's going to be okay with me and what's going to be okay with you, right? How do I want to communicate? How do we want to spend time together? What is going to be acceptable in terms of joking with one another? There's just, everybody has slightly different takes on what makes them comfortable. And setting boundaries and having healthy boundaries is a way to build that intimacy and connection. True, deep connection. Not fake, surface level, just do what I want, people pleasing, but actual connection comes with boundaries. The third thing I want to say is that boundaries enable growth. When you have boundaries, you are able to focus on the goals that you want to achieve, the things that you want to prioritize, and the spaces that you want to move into and move forward into in your life. Without boundaries, you tend to just be at the whim of what everyone else needs or wants or asks of you. With boundaries, you can say, as I said before, no thank you, I don't think I will. Right? I'm not interested in doing X because I am making space for Y and Z and the next alphabet letter after Z. So I think it's just really important that you reframe the concept of boundaries to not be about holding your hand up and pushing people away and saying no, but really making space for creativity, for conversation, for well-being, for health, for real, meaningful connection with yourself and with others. So I would just really challenge you when boundary language comes up and people are like, they get a little cranky when you start talking about setting some boundaries. Remember, you are honoring yourself and them by having some boundaries. The healthiest relationships come with some interaction of definition of boundaries. So, again, if you're struggling to set boundaries, if you're not sure you should set boundaries, if you're not exactly sure what boundaries are or which ones are important to you, I am happy to spend time working through that with you as a coach. So reach out to me, Leah at leahfarmercoaching.com. Go to my website, whatever works for you if you want to talk about boundaries. I'm happy to set up a little interaction and we can talk about those and work through them with you. I hope that this boundary discussion has been helpful. I think it's a really important one. It's very likely that we're going to find our way back here at some point in the future. I told someone yesterday that I feel like most of my coaching is a conversation about confidence and boundaries. And it really is. We all need a little boost of confidence and we all need to set some boundaries so that we can have those deep, meaningful connections, both with ourselves and with others. So I wish you beautiful, wonderful, healthy, strong boundaries.